pinned or something, you know, if we do the cat pinning, I'd stick a pin in it. If I do it with the camera, then I'd just say, what is this? And then we all write it down. Let's go across. Gallbladder is in green on that one. They're not always green, but it's always right side underneath the first lobe of the liver. See it? And it actually has a duct that runs down and connects it into your duodenum. Esophagus is underneath the trachea. Actually, it's beside on this one. See that trachea? Mm-hmm. Trachea is rough, and you got, you know, cartilage there. The esophagus is soft and squishy. Normally, sits right underneath it. So it's actually underneath there. It's just a little bit over to the side right now. The stomach, right there. It's J-shaped. Shaped like a J. That's just fat there. We pull it kind of apart. That whole storage tank there. Rugae would be inside the stomach. I'm gonna cut it open because there's, you know, stuff in there, but the lining on the inside of the stomach's all wrinkly looking. And that's called rugae. The pyloric sphincter is right here. You don't have to cut it open to see it. It's a muscle that lets food out of your stomach into your duodenum. See how it's divided right there? How you see a little indentation? So that would be the pyloric sphincter muscle. The duodenum is this first curve right there. In us, it's about 25 centimeters long. That's about it. And the pancreas connects into it, so does the gallbladder. If you lift up the omentum, that's the omentum, and underneath the stomach, you see that gland there? That gray kind of brainy tissue, all the way across, all the way over. See? That's the pancreas. And
This
it
right
is, yep, that whole lengthy thing. And it is connected right into, see, the duodenum. That's making your digestive enzymes and dumping them into here. Also produces insulin, you know, things like that. So, middle section, jejunum, is just, I would pin it anywhere in the middle, you know, like right there. It's just the middle part of the small intestine. Ileum is where it connects to the large intestine, or colon, and I would pin it close by. So if you go to the colon, you see it's going out the door, right? That's where you poop from. This would be the descending side. This would be transverse, going across. See how much wider it is, too? Small intestine, large intestine. And then the ascending side, you flip over the intestines, and there it is, ascending. See where the small connects to the large here? Small intestine, boom, into the colon. So that would be, if I put a pin here, that's ileum. Duodenum be pinned close to the stomach, jejunum in the middle, ileum real close to where it connects to the colon or large intestine. The ileocecal valve is the valve that lets food from the intestine, small intestine, into the large. Speaking of cecum, that's the cecum. That little knobby thing. And there's no appendix. We cut this guy open and show you the ileocecal valve. Okay. You open up the colon, see the valve?
That's gross.
And if you put your scissors in there, that goes straight into, there's my scissors right there, straight into the small intestine, into the large. Technically, anything past the valve that way, like down in this little pouch, down in here, that's the cecum. It's the part past the valve, which I usually just pin it in the tip end, so you know where it's at. Pancreas we've seen, cecum we've seen. Large intestine or colon is the whole thing. Could be pinned anywhere, ascending, transverse, or descending. Usually I would pin it over here where it's nice and clear. Let's see where we're at. Pericardium is the sac around the heart. You got a bunch of glandular tissue and fat. See how see that sac that I'm wiggling? You actually have to cut through the pericardium like I just did to see the heart underneath. That's the heart. That's the pericardium. Where there'd be serous fluid in between there if it was alive. Where are we at? Mesentery. It's connective tissue holding all these intestines together. See how that clear? That's all mesentery. Those are called mesenteric arteries and veins. But it holds everything kind of compacted. If you cut all that, and like cut right here and just colon and start pulling, then you'd stretch all the intestines all the way out straight. Peritoneum or peritoneum is the inside lining of your abs. We've cut most of it away, but you can still see it. Slide the scissors. See how I can pick up that clear layer that's cut through right there? See that layer that I'm lifting? That's your peritoneum. That one actually would be called the parietal. Peritoneum, viscerals, the lining that's on all this stuff, your intestines. Kidneys. One right there. Now what's surrounding the kidney is tons and tons. You can see the vessels now that I pull away the fat. Now fat is a storage for energy, but it's also connective tissue. This fat doesn't go away. You can't like go exercise and like I'm gonna burn my kidney fat. It just stays there because fat holds things in place. It's a connective tissue. A lot of your organs are held like that fat that's holding the bladder. So connected to, there'd be another kidney over here, of course. Right there. There's the other kidney. Let's see. Ureter. That's a tube that's going to go from the bladder, from the kidney down to the bladder, and they're tiny. So, and you know, this one you'll have to dig through fat. You can see these little U-shaped tubes here. This is a male cat, so those are the vas deferens. The ureters are right underneath that. This cat happens to be very fat. See that little tube right there? That's connected to the bladder itself. See, I'm tugging. This is the bladder I'm touching. See, I'm tugging on the bladder. If you keep following that tube, it comes from the kidney down. Like you can see that one there. If you just kept following it, you know, it goes from the kidney to the bladder. And you can clear most of that stuff out and the fat and things, you know, from the kidneys with just a little digging. It goes a long way. See the ureter there? That tube. And if you just kept following it, you know, and clearing out the fat and mesentery, it connects. You know, there's part of it there to the bladder. Bladder, we've seen. I've been touching that. Urethra goes out the door. So if that's the bladder, I have to trim away some here. And you can cut this further down later, but see that tube? Right there.
Is it talking about this right here?
So this is bladder, but see how that tube's going out the door, heading that direction. You know, that would run all the way down a portion through the penis, and that's the urethra.
Okay.
That's what you'd actually pee out of. Let's see. So ureters, that's a confusion point too, because the words are kind of close. Ureters are from the kidney to the bladder. There's two of them. right and left side. Urethra, there's only one of. It's much larger in size, as you can see, and goes out the door. The vas deferens we've seen in the male, which is these little loopy things. They go right over the ureter. They loop right over the top. The reason being is testes, which are now in the scrotum down here, are actually abdominal organs, and they sit in the same place where the ovaries are. And because of hormones and development, they descend. And usually they're descended before like a male is born, but not always. Sometimes they don't descend until later in life. Sometimes they stay up. You know, that happens. Usually makes a man infertile because the body temperature is too high for sperm to develop. That's the whole purpose of a scrotum, is it keeps the temperature cooler and sperm develop there. Vas deferens, testes, of course, are external. Now, if you want to, you can cut through the skin and see them, but they look basically like ovaries. Ovaries in a female and uterus would be over here. Something you did not see on this other cat. There's your bladder and the fat, but you know there's no flip-floppy things. This whole organ here, see, it's kind of U-shaped. That is the uterus, and it extends. You can see all the way up. It's been cut here, but that's all uterus. And a cat, because they can have multiple babies, you know, 2 or 3 on both sides. And in a human, it would just be that one single pouch. That little ball there, that's an ovary. You got ovary, uterus, coming around back to the other side. Flip it over, and there's the other ovary right there. So 2 ovaries, big U-shaped uterus on the female. What else we got left? Heart, spleen, diaphragm. Heart, obviously, we've seen already underneath your pericardium, but that's your heart, whole thing. Spleen is huge in this cat. Always on the left side. Not always that big, but that gigantic thing there is spleen. Sometimes people put liver because they look kind of the same. Diaphragm's this muscle that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. And this is how you breathe, right? When you pull down on the diaphragm, it contracts, air goes in. When you push up, air goes out. Or when you relax. Lungs, got right and left side, sitting right beside the heart. There's the other ones over there. Kind of hiding, but they're there. So all that stuff actually you can take off. That's the thymus gland I just removed. You'll be able to get to the vessels better with that later. And trachea was the tube we've already covered. Windpipe going to the lungs. If you take the lungs and clip them, you can see the little holes. Those are the bronchial tubes, and it looks like a bunch of little tiny air sacs, because see how it's still filled with fluid? That would normally be filled with air. That's how you breathe. That's a pretty big bronchial, that tiny little hole. Though this thing, remember, there's 23 orders of branching, and they get far less than the size of a hair, so tons of them. And that is all of your organs. Now you just go back over that, go back over that, go back over that until you're confident with it. You know, touching things sometimes helps because they do feel different, but mainly location. I mean, spleens, it may look different. Like
okay, esophagus. Do the esophagus one more time. That's your trachea, so it's gotta be
It's that little thing right here.
that little thing. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
most of the time that is actually underneath the trachea, like behind it, and you have to lift the trachea up
To see it.
and separate the esophagus because it's stuck to the back side of it. But it's a soft, squishy tube like, you know, intestines, whereas the trachea is hard and got the cartilage. Rigid.